You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we've got your bags in FAB Facts.
We're learning lots of D words in the Randomiser.
and we're listening to the music with Joe Kraemer.
And that's all coming up rather raspily in Pod 239.
You speak for yourself. Of the Gerry Anderson podcast! But you can't do that.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Well, hello there.
Here we are, isn't it? Oh, hello. Who's this has just turned up? Orson Welles?
Leslie Phillips.
Yeah.
No, not really. No, I will apologise in advance for my silly, raspy voice. My Christmas gift to myself this year was 3 weeks of flu. And I'm
dear.
coming out the back of that now, so apologies. And I
mean-
have great sympathy for anyone who's been going through anything similar over the Christmas break.
Yeah, this is where I thank our lucky stars that we record remotely and I'm not in a room with you.
Yes, yeah. Unfortunately, the people that I did see, or the very few people I did see over the Christmas break, have sadly come down with the same thing.
Oh, no, you've given it away. Your Christmas gift.
I'm so generous. Anyway, what's going on? I am the previously flu-ridden Jamie Anderson.
Yes, and I'm the picture of health, Richard James.
Goodness me, well done you. And coming soon as well, probably wearing a mask, I suspect.
I would think so, yes.
To avoid me, is Chris Dale, the Randomiser himself, who will be joining us at the end of this episode of this Gerry Anderson podcast.
That's it.
To deliver the Randomiser.
Yeah. Just realised we got this far in and we haven't mentioned the words Gerry Anderson podcast.
Well, we've done it several times now, so people will definitely know this is the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Yes.
And Chris's Randomiser, well, he randomly gives you a random episode of a random Gerry Anderson show and tells you all about it and says funny and thoughtful and insightful things. And
It's true. Yeah.
It's many Podsterons' favourite part of the
quite
podcast.
right.
But there are many other parts before that.
There are, that's true. Would you like to hear them?
Yes, and don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to do it in any style because since your amazing
goodness.
Wogan interviews Richard James edition, I don't think we can top it. So just give it in whatever style you like.
I mean, maybe it'll make a reappearance, in time for next Christmas, perhaps. I don't mind
Or
doing
one
it.
hopes, the old Christmas crack.
The old festive treat, exactly right. Well, we've got all the usual gubbins. There we are. I've said it for the first time this year because although you've already heard your New Year's podcast last week, this is the first time that Jamie and I have got back together to record new episodes. So your New Year's podcast for us includes Fab Facts, News.
Ooh.
Second part of interview with Joe Kraemer.
Ah.
And above, beyond, between all that, the Podsterons themselves have been emailing us at podcast@gerryanderson.com like they've got nothing better to do. They've been hashtagging us on Twitter, hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast, and they've also been commenting on our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/groups/Podsterons. Now, I have to say, because this is the first time that we've got together, really since Christmas, to do a podcast, I will also be looking back at all the wonderful messages that were posted on Twitter using the hashtag Cheers Gerry Anderson on Boxing Day. It seems a long time ago now, but we haven't had an opportunity to read them out. So I shall be coming back to those throughout the podcast.
And even if you only cover 0.1% of them, it'll still take you 10 minutes because we were absolutely overwhelmed this year.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, lovely.
Some really lovely memories and messages and thoughts in there. And I did manage to read pretty much all of them.
Wow.
In their thousands.
God,
so
incredible.
Thank you very much. Well, I look forward to hearing some of those, and many of them possibly are hearing them again, and some I suspect for the first time, depending on where they were.
That's right.
As we build a bridge to get to that point and hearing some of those things,
yes.
do you mind if I build that bridge out of some Fab Facts?
Only if the supports are structurally sound.
I guarantee structurally sound Fab Fact coming right up.
Go on then.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Yes. It's an influenza-y Fab Fact.
How lovely, my favourite.
It won't be any.
I'll just stand back a bit.
Yeah, you probably should. Fab Facts. I've got a book of Fab Facts. I flipped through it. We're stopping a random page at the point that Richard cries FAB.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to cry it, but you know what I mean.
Okay,
Just exclaim it loudly.
Yeah.
And then hopefully there'll be a fab fact there already to you, and you can enjoy the fabness of said fact.
Hopefully.
Good,
Big
right.
operative word.
All right, Richard, are you ready with your cry of
Born
fab?
ready.
Good,
Come
good.
on.
And here comes the flicking.
Fab!
Ooh,
See, I did cry it.
you really did.
Yeah.
That was worthy of somebody tumbling down a cliff edge in Thunderbirds that you would have featured in
You're too kind.
this episode moment.
Yes.
It's quite Carano-esque actually, as he's being influenced by the hood. Anyway, this fab fact does not concern Thunderbirds or anyone falling down a cliff.
Oh.
Now, we all know The Protectors was a production that had more than its fair share of complications and troubles, don't we? We've covered many of them in the past, in fact. Mm-hmm. But things weren't always so gloomy. You bet you're relieved to hear that, aren't you?
Yeah.
In the very beginning, Robert Vaughn was happy to appear as lead character Harry Rule, in part due to his first-class treatment.
Right.
In an interview, Robert Vaughn remembered arriving at the 5-star Dorchester Hotel for the very first time. For reference, nowadays a room at the Dorchester would set you back probably at least £800 British a night.
Yes.
So what's
wow.
that? Around $1,000 US, something like that,
Amazing,
depending on exchange rates and that. Anyway, Robert arrived from the airport with his then girlfriend and was surprised to see a bald man hurrying to get the luggage from the trunk.
Right.
I suppose we should say the boot as well.
Yeah.
Slightly peeved that this man was worried about baggage and not about opening the door for him or his girlfriend, Robert jumped out and shouted at the man who was now whisking his suitcases into the building. To his surprise, the man turned around and said, "Not to worry, I'm Lou Grade. I'm the producer of the show."
Brilliant.
Robert was so very impressed that the TV executive had come down to personally carry his bags that he soon forgot the oversight that Lou hadn't opened the car door for him. Mm-hmm. This was also the last time that Robert saw Lou during the production of The Protectors. From then on, he dealt only with Dad. Oh. From his point of view, Robert Vaughn enjoyed filming in England and across Europe and felt that the trouble with the production was the British Union rules, which required regular meal and tea breaks and slowed down the pace of shooting. Yes, come on, can't you work without food and tea?
That's right.
But Dad remembered things rather differently and blamed Robert for being difficult to work with and occasionally belligerent.
Oh, ouch.
Now, which version of these recollections of events is true? Possibly a little bit of both.
As usual.
Yes, exactly. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. But either way, The Protectors remains a fascinating time capsule of the early 1970s productions, as often observed by Randomiser General himself, Chris Dale. And I think, even though it pales into insignificance compared to many Anderson shows, perhaps it easily outshines many similar action-adventure series of the same era. But what do you think, Podsterons? Is that fair to say? Do let us know. podcast@gerryanderson.com.
So what years are we talking about for The Protectors? When was that in production?
71, 72, wasn't it, I think?
Right. So actually the only things that really could compete would be the proper American imports that we were getting at the time. Things like your Rockford Files and your Starsky and Hutch. They came a little bit later, I suppose, didn't they? But certainly nothing in Britain at the time to touch it, was there, in terms of production and quality and so on?
No, probably not. I mean, similar era, what, Persuaders, was that around then?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Sweeney
Champions even?
Champions, was Sweeney was later, was it?
I think.
Yeah. But interesting. A strange era of television, but...
Yes. Yeah. But one much loved by many people.
Well, by a few.
Even The Protectors.
Yes. Possibly.
Nice.
Anyway, there you go. So, Lou, the bag carrier. Wasn't that nice of him? But he should have opened the door first.
He really should, yes. Slipped up there.
There you go. Anyway, that, I think, brings us clunkily and with a failure to open the door to the end of this week's Bag Fact. Oh,
Yay!
Gosh, we're aligned again. It's only taken us about 3 months to say the same thing.
Well, that's a good start to the new year for us, isn't it?
Yeah, Bag Fact, classic.
Bag Fact. You're listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast, as we've recently discussed.
Have we?
Now, you can do us a very good favour for the new year. If you're feeling still, in a generous frame of mind, why not subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to us on and leave us, please, a lovely rating. That's a review and a rating, 5 stars if possible, if you feel you could, and just a few words telling us why you love the Gerry Anderson podcast so much. Another thing you can do is also copy the link from your favourite episode, and why not paste it in all your social media profiles as well, so your friends can get to hear us. All of them. Your TikToks, your Twitters, your Facebooks, your Instagrams. Have I missed any out? Probably. Just so that we can cover the land with Gerry Anderson goodness. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
I think it really would be.
Yes. In the meantime, our lovely Podsterons have been getting in touch. podcast@gerryanderson.com. For example, Dom Riley says, hello, chaps and podders. Oh, an amazing two-parter with the amazingly talented Genevieve Gaunt. This is the recent interview with Genevieve that we had here on the podcast. She is Lady Penelope, says Dom, as well as Nero Jones. Speaking of Nero, this is from First Action Bureau. When will we see or hear more from First Action Bureau? She's a joy to listen to. I hope you all had a great Christmas, and I hope that 2023 is amazing for you. FAB, SIG, PWOR, and SPA, Dom Riley.
Well, Dom, FAB indeed, First Action Bureau. I think this is the year that you'll hear more from Nero Jones. Don't you, Dickie?
I think you might be right.
I think so too.
Shall I carry on and just leave that hanging there?
Oh, just leave it out there.
Walk away. Now, Phil Steer has been in touch. Hello,
Phil
everyone,
Steer?
says Phil. Now, this takes us back to the Pod 236 Fab Fact about the Tracy Island Christmas shopping list from Give or Take a Million.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Phil says, tongue for Christmas? Yes, please.
Really,
when I was
Phil?
growing up with my family's traditional Christmas breakfast, it included slices of cold ox tongue with toast and English mustard. Absolutely delicious. Yes, I remember eating tongue with mustard as well. My late mum, says Phil, would cook a whole ox tongue and then press it in a weighted, loose-bottomed cake tin. I'm certain that her mother would have done the same, and doubtless her mother before that. Sadly, says Phil, my wife does not share this enthusiasm for this delicacy on Christmas morning, and neither, it seems, do our 3 now grown-up children. So, although I've once cooked and pressed an ox tongue for Christmas, it's much too large for me to manage on my own, and so this particular family tradition has sadly been discontinued. But it's gratifying at least to learn that it is a tradition shared by the Tracy family. With all best wishes to you and the Podsterons for 2023. Phil, P.S., says Phil, did Jamie get his Joe 90 Christmas jumper?
Let's not mention that in case somebody gets too excited and makes it happen next year. But no, I didn't.
All right, fair enough.
Also, Phil Steer, nobody said that they were actually going to cook and press the tongue. I wonder if young Alan was going to play a practical joke on John and sort of stick it under his pillow or something.
Oh, what? That's disgusting. Why would you do such a thing?
Well,
a tongue? Because they're big.
Boys will be boys.
Ox tongues are big, and they're long, floppy things.
All right. Goodness me, less detail. Let's move on.
Finally then, Simpsons Clips 24 has been in touch. Hello, Richard and Jamie. Simpsons Clips 24 here, and I was surprised to hear Lavender Castle come up as the first randomiser of 2023. Anyway, I remember Chris Dale saying that Birds of a Feather was a very interesting episode on which to end the series, but my investigations tell me that the episode was not meant to end the series. This is because 26 scripts had already been written for a second series by Gerry Anderson, Pauline Fisk, and Chris Trengrove, plus 2 new additions to the writing team, Jimmy Hibbert and Marco Palmer, which makes me wonder what happened to those scripts in the end. SIG, Simpsons Clips 24.
I actually don't know. I wish I had an answer for you there.
Yeah, well, we often say that, don't we? He seems to unearth the most interesting facts and missing memorabilia and, information about Lavender Castle.
Well, even things that he probably shouldn't know. It's a bit worrying. I'm just going to check on the desk to make sure he's not here now.
I would. Yeah, exactly.
No, I think we're all clear.
No, we're all clear, are we? Oh, well, yeah, just got lucky. Yeah, well, there we are. I mean, we do love Lavender Castle. We get lots of praise for Lavender Castle here on the podcast. But as we often say, one of Gerry's least known and perhaps least celebrated series.
Yeah.
Apart from by Simpsons Clips 24, of course.
Most known and most celebrated in that area.
Indeed. All for now, but do keep your emails coming in. It's easy. Just put your fingers to your keyboard and type in the words podcast@gerryanderson.com. Then put where it says subject, the subject of your email, and then carry on moving your fingers over the keyboard to write a nice, coherent and concise email to Jamie, Chris, and me.
Brilliantly put.
There we are. It's easily done.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I tell you what I do have,
Yeah.
which is the synopsis for a proposed Lavender Castle movie,
Oh, really?
dated the 20th of May, 1998. So there you
Wow.
go. That
Amazing.
is at least one thing I have.
Great. Very nice.
Which is a 21-page synopsis with some actual scripted sections in there.
Lovely.
But probably one that will sadly never see the light of day.
Yeah, there we are. But as they say in America, thanks for sharing.
Yep, my great pleasure.
Nice. Yes, more from our Podsterons a little later on over on our Facebook group and Twitter and so on. But actually, in the meantime, before we move on, what I would like to do is just read out a few of these wonderful Cheers Gerry Anderson tweets that we received over
Please
Christmas.
do. Lovely.
Yeah, here's a couple. First of all, from Ian Carpenter, who says, fantastic childhood memories of being spellbound watching Stingray and Thunderbirds, which happily remain with me more than 50 years on. Thank you, Gerry the Genius. And a hashtag Cheers Gerry Anderson. Gary D tweeted, Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, Stingray and Joe 90 were my childhood. I have Harrop figurines of some. I was obsessed. Then came UFO. Scared the bejesus out of me, but I had the DVDs now. Then Space 1999. The Andersons were geniuses. And Sean Lever says, one of my most treasured memories of my now deceased granddad was building a Blue Peter Tracy Island with him and my dad. Thank you, Gerry. Isn't that lovely? There you go. It's just so much a part of people's family life, isn't it? Not just the childhood memories and the nostalgia, but so often, we hear it all the time, memories of Gerry Anderson programmes have been linked with memories of family and of older generations, sharing it with your parents or sharing it with your grandparents. Very nice. Yeah, love it.
Would you like to move on?
Well, I think we should. Otherwise, we'll just be standing still.
Okay, fine. Well, then we should go into some Gerry Anderson news because it's our first one recording in 2023 about stuff in 2023. There's some stuff to talk about. So,
Okay.
shall we talk?
Well, you could do the talking. I'll do the listening.
Yeah, all right. Here's the Gerry Anderson news. Yes, indeed. It's 2023's Gerry Anderson news. You almost forgot that, didn't you?
Oh, I did. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, fine. Well, look, I'm going to dip slightly into the past for this one, but only by a couple of days. Did you realise that the Saturday just gone, Saturday the 7th of January, marked the 30th anniversary of the Tracy Island make on Blue Peter?
I didn't know that, no.
Well, now you do.
Now I do, yeah.
Many of you actually may have seen a small article about it in the Telegraph, if you're a Telegraph reader. And isn't that a lovely thing that people remember it so fondly? Something, really shouldn't have sort of stuck in people's memories. I wonder how many other Blue Peter makes get an anniversary celebration of any sort.
I think, other than that, it's only the Christmas Advent candle holder that they make with coat hangers and tinsel.
Yeah, there you go. But that's got another thing to hang it off, hasn't it?
That's
being
true.
Christmas.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there we go. Anyway, moving on from an anniversary, we're giving you a free gift throughout January. I'm sure you'll be thrilled to know about that. If you spend over £50 at the Gerry Anderson store throughout January, then a free gift will be added to your basket, discounted to nothing, and you can enjoy that on us.
Lovely.
It's our little gift to you, late Christmas present, especially following on from all the Christmas shopping issues and Royal Mail strikes and various things. Goodness me. Some of that's been terrifying. We'll cover that shortly. At the time of recording this podcast, we have five Thunderbirds calendars left in stock. If you want to get one for 2023, they're almost gone.
Okay, yeah.
Now, this year, it's the 40th anniversary of Terrorhawks, which I'm very excited about.
Yes.
So, for the whole year, on the 10th of every month, we're going to be celebrating 10 months of Terrorhawks, leading us up to Terrorhawks Day on 10/10, the 10th of October. On the 10th of every month, we'll be taking a look back at the show, its production, covering audio, doing interviews, all sorts of bits and pieces. So you can look out for that on the 10th of every month from now until October. Thursday the 12th, you must look out for some exciting Corgi-related news.
What, the dogs?
No.
Oh.
I've already said too much, though.
Oh,
so
fine.
I'm afraid I can't say any more there. Also, this coming Friday, if you've been holding off getting a copy of the UFO Comic Anthology Volume 1 or 2, we are offering a bundle where you can get both versions for a hefty discount. So if you are waiting to get that and you think, I'll use my Christmas money for that. If you indeed got any, which I hope you did, then Friday the 13th is your day for that. And finally, I haven't already mentioned it, but all the Royal Mail strikes and delays and all that sort of stuff, goodness me, what a pain it's all been.
Tricky.
Now, lots of you may have received at any point from the end of November throughout December an update from our shipping system saying it's been shipped. And if you go over to the Royal Mail website, it says sender is preparing item or something like that.
Right.
And it has remained as such since then. That does not mean that we have got a box sat in the warehouse and we're preparing it.
Yeah.
What it actually means is that Royal Mail systems have not updated. We have seen many items that were posted even as early as the 28th of November taking 30 plus days to be processed inside the UK. So if you're waiting for a delivery outside of the UK but it's coming from the UK, you're looking at 30 days for it to leave the country. It's
crikey.
Bonkers.
Madness.
Very frustrating for all of us. Now, there's not a lot that we can do, because if we start, without waiting long enough, we start sending out replacements, they may well take just as long, and then you'll end up with two of them, and then people want to return things, and it just creates a big nightmare. So if you can be as patient as possible, we really appreciate it. You will not go without. We will make it right, but just bear that in mind if you're emailing the customer services team. Michael, Tim and Louise are doing their best to get through things. In fact, bless him, Michael worked pretty much throughout the Christmas break to keep on top of things and keep people up to date. So well done, team. But yes, you'll get a response as soon as possible. Thanks for bearing with us, and fingers crossed for more efficiency this year and fewer strikes and problems. But
that would be nice.
We're doing what we can. Anyway, there you go. There's lots of other stuff to come over the next few weeks and months, and actually it's a very exciting year. So more to share with you soon. But for now, that's the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. That was the news.
Jolly good.
There, lovely. Yeah, lots of good stuff there. Now, I'm going to head straight on over to our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, where people have been posting the most interesting things. Now, Nick Rice, for example, posted, here's an interesting thing, a clip from the BBC show In at the Deep End from 1984. Look who turns up at 4 minutes and 23 seconds. His voice is unmistakable. Well, have a listen to this and see what you think.
In the library of a Buckinghamshire mansion, Robert Easton, the Hollywood dialect doctor, is researching accents. He's taught Charlton Heston to be Chinese and Sir John Gielgud to be Texan. Now for a real challenge. My lines. East European with menace.
I told you, old man, to leave us alone. You're going to get the young lady in trouble, but not nearly as much trouble as you're going to get yourself.
Okay, now.
Were you getting menaced?
Not overly. Let's just say that I want you to do it so menacingly that only my laundryman knows how worried I really was. Right. Take it from the first phrase, and we'll just do it word by word.
I told you, old man, to leave us alone.
Right. So, told will end in a T. So instead of told, told. I told.
I told.
Okay, next word.
To leave us alone.
A lawn. Like, look out the window there, Paul. That's a lawn. L-A-W-N. Lawn.
A lawn.
Yeah, just think of a lawn. To leave us alone.
You're going to get the young lady in trouble.
Right, now, going, you need a K in there. Goink. Goink.
Goink.
Coming.
Coming.
Being.
Being.
Kissing.
Kissing.
Killing.
Killing.
Excellent. The average Englishman pitches the voice quite a bit higher than the average Eastern European. So if you can get the voice trained down to use the chest resonance,
that, of course, was Robert
lovely.
Easton.
What a voice.
Yeah, there you are. The voice of Phones Sheridan Agent X20 as well, I think.
X20, Richard. Come on, Dookie.
I always call him X20. But then I've never seen it.
Yeah, well, you try and pronounce it as if it was a word. Good luck with that.
So, yeah, well, good find there, Nick. Very nice indeed. Adrian John Heath posted, you would be forgiven for never having heard of Tom Caron. Here's another name. But you should. The designer and inventor passed away yesterday, aged 96, and will always be remembered as the designer of style icons such as the Riley Chopper, the Bond Bug, Reliant Robin, and Scimitar, and he even designed Luke Skywalker's land speeder.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, what's it got to do with the Gerry Anderson universe, you might be asking? Well, Adrian has posted a picture of Tom Caron, and he says he designed and invented all sorts of other stuff, including aircraft like the one below with a very familiar wing configuration. An inspiration, perhaps. And there he is with an aircraft with the backwards-facing Thunderbird 2 wing design. So, Tom Caron, yes, not perhaps a direct link to the Gerry Anderson universe, but of a time when all this sort of design inspiration was swirling around and seemed to be plucked out of the ether, many people thinking of, similar ideas, and some of them committing them to celluloid, some of them making models, and some of them actually making aircraft. Amazing. Deck Goodhall posted, do you reckon Team America will ever end up in the randomizer? I know it's not Anderson, so I'm asking you on a whim. To which Chris Dale replied, no, probably not. There's always room for occasional non-Anderson stuff if I can find a strong enough connection to include. Maybe a parody or a spoof would be worth doing at some point, but probably not that. Nothing against the film, he says. I just don't know it well enough to talk about it for 90 minutes plus.
Very fair comment. Let's agree that is the reason.
And finally, Richard Crane has been playing around with his Photoshop, and he posted a picture posting in Stingray, Atlanta Shore and Marina are the only two female characters seen on screen. However, there is a third female character, voiced by Lois Maxwell, but was never seen. The character, known as Tracking Station, was only heard by voice in Stingray Episode 6, The Big Gun. Inspired by this, I created my own version of this specific character, known as Tracking Station, The Big Gun, using one of the female puppets from Thunderbirds. Whilst it's unknown which tracking station this female character was based at, I created a location for a wasp tracking station for Marineville, an island off the west coast of America, complete with an offshore lighthouse. And he's posted his picture for all to see. Amazing. And it's a rather lovely thing. Which prompted me to think, what other unseen characters can you think of from the Gerry Anderson universe? And which of them would you like to see come to life?
Ooh.
Unseen characters. We're talking voices on tannoys, voices on phones, people off screen, voices off. Can you think of any off-screen characters that are never seen? Let us know.
Gosh.
Send them in. Podcast@gerryanderson.com. And we'll see how many we can gather.
Niche.
Jamie, that's what we're here for.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Sorry.
Yeah. So do join in the fun. Head on over to our Facebook group and answer a few questions. We'll let you in. People post pictures of their merch and their cosplay and their days out at various conventions and so on, and the people they've met over the years. It's a lovely place to hang out, so why not join them?
Yes, they are the friendliest place on the internet.
That's true. Yeah, in fact, make it your New Year's resolution to join the Facebook group.
Perfect. Agreed. Yeah. Done. Would you like to hear from another nice person?
Oh, yeah.
Who would be most welcome in the Podsterons group?
Sure. Let's hear from that nice person.
Okay, well, that nice person is composer Joe Kraemer, who's back for more. Mm-hmm. Now, I did see somebody say, he talked a bit much about Doctor Who last time.
Oh, right.
But the reason we did that is because it links to what we talk about this week. So this time, we'll be talking about First Action Bureau and more about his work on Thunderbirds and beyond. So here we go with Joe Kraemer, part 2 of 2. And so when we tasked you with going into the Thunderbirds audios, we knew that we needed a kind of bank of tracks. So can you just talk me through the how that works? Because I think Nick sent you a load of cues and said stuff like this. So how did you put those together, and how do you kind of give the spirit of Barry Gray Thunderbirds music without directly copying him?
Well, one of the sort of necessary evils of scoring movies in Hollywood is dealing with a temp track.
Yes.
And what happens is, for those who don't know, the filmmakers are shooting their movie, they put an edit together, and they want to be able to show the film to executives, friends and family, colleagues to get feedback on the film. And you really never want to show a film to somebody without any music at all, unless your plan is for the film to never have a score.
Yeah.
You want to, and since the film is not done, it doesn't make sense to hire a composer to score the film at this point in the process. So what they do is they take music from other films, from other CDs, from other albums, and they make like a temporary music track or a temp score. And often what happens is that the production team, the director, the producers, the financiers, they fall in love with that temp score. They fall in love with the way that temp score makes them feel.
Yeah.
And then the composer comes in and is basically told, we need you to make that temp score in a version that we won't get sued for. And so the working film composer needs to have some degree of almost like musicology in his or her background.
Yeah.
In order to listen to a piece of temp score and create something that can evoke the same emotional response in the listener, while at the same time avoiding any sort of litigious elements that could cost anybody money.
Yes.
And, to a certain degree, it comes down to somebody hearing something, what I try to do is I try to say, if Barry Gray heard this, would he say, hey, you actually stole what I did? I'm going to take you to court.
Yeah.
And then in court, if they played the 2 tracks for a jury, would the jury say yes? Yes. Not only, it's one thing to sound like it. It's another thing to actually infringe on the intellectual property.
Of course.
And, Chim Chimney, Chim Chimney, Chim Chim Cheree and Stairway to Heaven have a lot in common in their construction, as Jimmy Page pointed out in a fairly recent lawsuit. But they're not the same song. And between analysis by musicologists and, the opinion of the jurors and playing them different things, the jury said, no, it didn't infringe on that copyright.
Yeah.
And there are things that can make a piece of music distinctive that you can't copyright. You can't copyright rhythm, for example. So if you could copyright rhythm, then Happy Birthday and the Star Spangled Banner would be an infringement of each other. There's a folk tale I've heard, and it may be apocryphal, but the tale I heard was that Robert Kennedy was so tone deaf that he actually couldn't tell if a band was playing Happy Birthday or the Star Spangled Banner until people started singing the words.
Wow. Okay.
Because, happy birthday to you. Oh, say, can you see? It's the same rhythm.
Yeah.
Same thing with chord progressions. You can't technically copyright chord progressions, or else every blues singer would be violating every other blues singer. So, there are elements, so in any case, to go back to the Barry Gray material and obviously Thunderbirds had a sound.
Yes.
And this project that Big Finish is doing is licensed in terms of the property. It's not a sort of thing somebody's doing for YouTube or for their podcast.
Yes.
That is sort of a fan film. This is a licensed thing, but, similar to the Big Finish Doctor Who material, we can't use the actual music.
Yeah.
So I listened to all that Barry Gray music and I sort of inhaled it. I did what I do when I start a project where I have to deal with pre-existing material. Mission was another case where I just went and listened to pretty much everything Lalo did for season 1 of the original TV show. If I'm scoring a Colin Baker story for Doctor Who, I'll go back and watch a couple episodes or listen to a couple episodes and kind of absorb what the composers were doing in those stories. So with Barry's music for Thunderbirds, Nick sent me sort of a library of stuff. And I don't know if it was, he didn't explain to me where it came from, but it was broken into very tiny pieces.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's really like that on the CDs or wherever he got it, or if he broke it up himself. And then he had sort of labeled each piece with a sort of mood or feeling or, emotion or scene requirement. And so I sort of organized them all by those descriptions, listened to all of them and sort of said, okay, well, he's doing this and that, and he's using this instrument here, and he's using this kind of scale and this kind of chord, and then it's moving at this tempo. And then I would sort of say, well, I'll take the tempo from piece A, but I'll write it in the scale of piece B, and I'll use the instruments from piece C.
Yeah, nice.
Which were all in the same dramatic category, but they weren't, the same thing. And hopefully, by doing that, I created material that honored Barry's sound, but didn't infringe on his copyrights. I didn't really ever take any notes or sequences of notes.
Yeah.
And, I try to be respectful while at the same time doing what I've been asked to do, which is give you some Barry Gray type music that won't get anybody sued. Or offend Barry Gray and his estate, I don't want people to feel like they're being ripped off. So
no, there's no rip off. It's all very much inspired by kind of hybridized from. And I have to say, Joe, on all the kind of feedback and all the reviews and stuff, one of the things people often remark about is how good the music is, while not being a direct copy. It all evokes the same feeling. So mission accomplished there. They've done a great thing. When you were saying about the labels that Nick put, I was just thinking I could read some of them out, but actually some of them are not repeatable on a clean podcast.
I can't remember. With knowing Nick, I'm not surprised.
One was like a big giant machine.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, something. Yeah. You remember that one? Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I may have blocked it. I'm all woke now. I may have blocked it.
No, they were great titles. They were very descriptive, and the result was we've got this amazing library to draw on. So you've done
one thing I love about the English is that you're not quite so. You still have a sense of humor about a lot of these things. Well, in America, it's really clamped down on that. So
no, we like to try and keep things humorous, including the odd Barry Gray wah wah wah.
In fact, funnily enough, it's some of that really idiosyncratic stuff that's the hardest to imitate.
Yes,
because the way that like a trombonist will do that, you can't do that really well with samples.
No.
So a lot of that stuff I didn't even really try to do. I would sort of try to find a different way to make something sound kind of silly, maybe with some like a little rat-a-tat snare drum and a triangle, and then maybe like some woodwinds that make sort of a, that's the thing I did in Space 1999. I actually did it through a little Trekism in there, which is that at the end of a lot of episodes of Trek, there'd be that thing where they're all on the bridge. And McCoy would say he'd make some jab at Spock, and Spock would lift one eyebrow and like, really, Dr. McCoy, it's most illogical, and the music would always be like an oboe that would go like, and then it would cut to the exterior of the ship and you'd hear bom, ba, bom, ba, 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 ba. So, I was doing one of the episodes of Space 1999 that we did for Big Finish had an ending like where Koenig and Russell shared like a comedic moment, and then, the ship sort of flies off into the next adventure. And so I sort of paid tribute to that kind of ending, that kind of musical button.
Yeah. And they just evoke so much nostalgic feeling. So without those, I think all the productions would be the poorer. So I'm very glad we've got you and your musicologist approach.
Well, thank you. And, I was able to buy, another thing that helped a lot was I was able to buy the conductor's score to Barry's theme for Thunderbirds. So I had an arrangement for orchestra or for band, and while I did use that to do the theme, because the theme we were licensed to use the
composition, but on the recording,
right. So I had to make a new recording, and I was actually surprised how well the samples I think kind of held up.
Yeah,
there's something in Barry. Yeah, there's something in Barry's writing that's so distinctive that even using kind of modern samples, it kind of had that, 60s, 70s sound. And that was because I did that first in the process. That gave me the sort of courage or the confidence to think, we're going to be able to pull this off. I can write my own stuff and I'll be able to get away with it.
Yeah. Well, Barry's stuff shines through because of that style you've absorbed, and it's really, really brilliant stuff. But Joe, if I transplant us from the 1960s and 70s to the 2020s, or even into our own 2060s, the other kind of new project that we've done is First Action Bureau, which hopefully listeners have already heard, and if not, then you can download the feature version or go and listen to the free podcast. So our sort of spy-fi thriller type thing. I always say it's like Killing Eve meets Minority Report, which feels like the best description. So you worked very hard on that, particularly to come up with a theme for us, and then to kind of take advantage of some stuff that we'd worked on before, including those choral scores. Let's just talk about the kind of the approach to doing that, because we wanted to do something that was, had a hint of Anderson to it because of its sci-fi setting and in some of its themes, and, playing on the concerns of the day, in this case, AI and deep fakes and that kind of thing. in very much the same way that stuff played into the Cold War and organ transplants and all sorts of stuff in the past Anderson stuff. So how did you approach this? Because Nick and I think, gave you quite a hard time over the theme in particular.
Oh, I mean, there was a bit of back and forth. There were a number of drafts, but here's the thing. A lot of things with Big Finish we're dealing with a pre-existing property.
Mm.
So even in the case of like Missy, where I have to come up with a new theme.
Yeah.
Murray kind of established a sound for Missy at the end of her first episode when she's dancing around in that garden. David Richardson and Ken Bentley had some thoughts about how they thought her theme should reflect her character. But it wasn't sort of creating something new from whole cloth, with a blank slate, whereas First Action Bureau was more of a blank slate. Paternoster, again, I had this image of the three of them sort of in their Victorian garb, walking down the street, the nighttime street of London. That does so much of the heavy lifting for me in terms of getting my thought process going. First Action Bureau, we had a couple of, I think you may have sent me some almost like sketches, like some visual ideas.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if I saw a script yet. I think you sent me like a brief and maybe
would have been a brief up front, I think.
Yeah. So we were really dealing with, I sort of liken it to, there's a room with 4 white walls and there's a statue in the middle of the room and the statue's invisible. And I've got different buckets of paint. And so I throw some paint on it and the paint doesn't stick to the statue, but it leaves the outline of the statue from that perspective on the white wall. Then I walk to another point and I throw different paint. And I start to figure out what this theme is from the outlines on the wall. Well, the outlines on the wall are sort of the feedback I get from you and Nick. Yep. So I do a first draft and you go, well, it's, we can see now that this outline, take it from another point of view and give us a different outline. Yeah. And sometimes what I'll do, at one point I just did something that I knew was terrible, just so we had like a baseline of like, no, that's rubbish, as you say. Don't do that, And Nick was as polite as could be when he dismissed it, because I think he was afraid he might be that I may. But I was, dude, I get it, It was a case of, well, all right, so we know that this has things that do work. We know that this has things that work. I think this is not going to work, but let's make sure.
Yeah.
Sent it to you. Yeah, that's not going to work. But you never throw anything away. And, no. Concepts, some of the elements in that came back later. So it wasn't wasted work. But eventually, after a couple of different tries, we landed on elements that were then working for you. And then it became a case of sort of adding more color and elements as the thing developed. So, the first point of departure for me from a musical standpoint was, again, you talk about my conceptualization of the music ahead of time. I thought it would be cute to maybe see if I could get some musical material out of the notes F, A, and B, because it spells fab.
Yeah.
I remember when Galactica came out in the 2000s, and I was sitting at the piano, and I noticed that the 2 chords in that opening theme were B and G. Battlestar Galactica, and I just thought, again, when you're stuck for ideas, or when you're facing the blank page, whatever sort of little tricks you can use to get that process going. Yeah. So that was where I started. It didn't really yield something that we kept for the show, but it got us going, and it's much easier to sort of deal with something that's written than it is to deal with nothing.
Yeah.
So when we have nothing, you can say, I want it to be this and this and this and this, and then I can go and do something. Now we go, So a couple of things that I kept. We wanted sort of that odd off-kilter feeling of the Mission Impossible theme, which is written in 5/4, which means that it has 5 beats per measure instead of 4, it throws people off balance because we have 2 arms and 2 legs. We're used to things being, even. But 5/4 is very uneven, unbalanced. So I was dealing with, I think, I tried some different things. It was in 7/8, which is 7 eighth notes per measure instead of 4 quarter notes. This is technical, but again, it throws the listener off balance a little bit. I was trying to integrate that idea of F, A, and B. Yeah. And then instrumentation, it was an orchestra augmented with some drums, guitars, more modern instruments. And, again, dealing with what might be hackneyed or cliche, but, arpeggiating synthesizers are a really quick way to get the audience thinking high tech. And so there was elements of that in there to really say, okay, this is tech, this is high tech, this is the future, this is cyberpunk kind of, digital implants in our brains, like you said earlier, like deep fakes and Minority Report.
Yeah, it's got a great kind of spy vibe, which I think is tied just enough into the spy stuff that we know from the 60s and 70s, just to give it that thread back to Anderson. But there's also the cult aspect and a kind of more traditional aspect, and then that's where we brought the choral element in that we'd worked on Red Planets to put in some coded messages which listeners may not have noticed or heard yet, but are tied back to something which will be revealed in future stories.
Well, and credit where credit's due, that came almost entirely from you because, again, I hadn't read the scripts. I didn't know the stories. So you said, if there's a way we can put this in there, that would be really great because it's like an Easter egg now, but it's going to pay off eventually.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, it's very nice of you to give me any credit at all for just going, hey, that cool thing that you came up with and did before, Joe, let's do that again, but for this reason. It's really, really nice. So we are going to be doing some more. It's been a little while, but there is more First Action Bureau to come in a couple of different guises, and I'm really looking forward to putting that together. Joe, as we run out of time,
I know
if you could do the music as a complete do-over, a complete afresh for any Anderson show, say a classic Anderson show was being remade, doesn't really matter in what medium, which one would you love to have a stab at doing the score at from scratch, and why?
The thing is, like Thunderbirds, I would love to score live action. You know what I mean by live action?
Of course, yes.
Humans. Live action Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
I don't mean with humans. I mean like with the marionettes, but on film. Not.
Oh, I see. You mean that?
Not,
okay.
Yeah, not animated. Not audio. Not CG. But like I would love to do traditional style Thunderbirds, but I'd want to use the theme because I love the theme.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not Thunderbirds without that theme, Joe.
So when you say from the ground up, I mean, Space 1999, because, Derek did a different theme for Series 2. If that was a show that got rebooted, that might be a show where I would love to come in and not necessarily be beholden to use either pre-existing theme. If I can mention this, I've actually got, one of the delightful parts of working with Big Finish is that, the amount of music we create for the products, and same thing with the Anderson projects, is I'm able to do like a soundtrack album. And, so I've got a soundtrack album coming out of my Space 1999 music. And the people who put the soundtrack album asked me to actually make new versions of Barry's theme for Space 1999 and the Series 2 version.
Nice.
And I bookend the album with new arrangements of that. And what was fun about that was I got rid of like the wah-wah guitar and the more 70s elements. Not that I don't like them. It's not that I don't like them, but I just thought it'd be fun to make a wholly orchestral arrangement of those two pieces. Yeah. And so, and then I took some liberty with, especially with Barry's theme, to expand it from the sort of 45-second off to the races to like a 3-minute, 2-minute kind of development.
Oh, wow. Well, I want to hear these go.
Well, you will. And so I had a chance to kind of do what we're talking about a little bit with the album, which is sort of approach it from scratch. I would love to do anything. I would love to see something like First Action Bureau move into 3-dimensional storytelling, and have that clean slate. I've it's no secret that I've I've had some really close calls in the Star Wars world, working with those properties. But the truth is, I mean, in some ways, I think given the current climate, the current way things are done, I almost, in much the same way that George Lucas in the end couldn't get the rights to Flash Gordon, and so he created his own with Star Wars. In a lot of ways, I kind of want to take the ideas I have for Star Wars and make something new out of that has nothing to do with Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it'd be fun to find a project where I could put that energy and that thought, that kind of creative instinct, without it necessarily competing with all this baggage of John Williams and, you know, and the legacy of something like Star Wars.
Yeah, and a lot of pressure and baggage comes with any of these things, right? But I'm glad you've got to play with the World of Space 1999. So listeners will have to look out for that. Joe, if people want to find you online, do you have social media places where people can grab you and find you and follow your work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Facebook right now. I was on Twitter, but my bleeding heart couldn't handle all the upheaval and sort of disruption to how things are going. So I'm not on Twitter right now. I've got an Instagram channel, but I'm old and don't know how Instagram really works. So I'm sort of waiting to see if Twitter levels back out, I may go back, or I know there's Mastodon. And in any case, I've got Facebook. I'm getting joekraemer.com is a mess right now, but I'm rebooting that in the new year.
Awesome.
Right now, Facebook is probably the best place to find me. Okay. And I've got lots of music on Apple Music, on Amazon Music, on Spotify, probably on Pandora. All the streaming services have a lot of my music, and Big Finish is always sort of spreading the word about projects that I'm involved in on the social media as well. So
there you go. So you look somewhere, you'll find Joe somewhere.
Yeah, just Google me.
You'll find him. Joe, it's been brilliant. I could always happily chat to you for hours, but sadly our time is up. So thank you so much. Maybe we'll have you again to talk about First Action Bureau Series 2 in the not too distant future, we hope.
I would love that.
Awesome. Joe, thank you so much.
Jamie.
Well, thank you, Joe. There we
lovely.
Go. So, my question to you, Podsterons, is if you listen to the First Action Bureau theme, can you now pick out the choral lines? Can you hear what they're saying? Can you translate it from the Latin? And can you therefore draw some conclusions about First Action Bureau that you might not have realised before?
Oh, that's good, isn't it?
Yes,
I have to listen again.
There's a challenge for you. It's quite difficult to pick it out, but when you know that there's Latin choral stuff and it means something, you might be able to pick something out, and it does reveal something about the show. So there you go.
Gosh, very good.
A hidden fab fact.
I love it. Just as all fab facts should be.
All right, rude. Hashtag rude. So thank you, Joe. You can hear Joe's music on Spotify or via your music streaming service of choice. Just search for Joe Kraemer. That's Kraemer.
Great.
You're right, he was.
Yes. Absolutely. And I'm going to return to other great people over on Twitter who hashtagging Cheers Gerry Anderson on Boxing Day and sending us their Gerry Anderson memories and thoughts. For example, Wheels Wheeler tweeted, "Still hanging onto my supercar tea set. My late mum and dad bought me when I was very young. My introduction to Gerry Anderson and a memory from my childhood." Imagine that, a supercar tea set.
Aww.
And they posted a picture, looks lovely. Rachel Adams, "I wish I could have told your dad, Jamie, that Terrorhawks helped me to survive my school days."
Oh. Lovely.
Sarah Francis, "Cheers, Gerry Anderson. I'm 62, and I still find myself saying, of many situations, anything can happen in the next half hour." Yeah, we all do that, I think. Socrates says, "One of my earliest memories was of sitting in front of a small TV in the 1960s watching a rocket being hauled over a bridge that was rapidly collapsing. I was absolutely mesmerised. Our TV was black and white, but to me, it seemed like it was in the most vivid colour." That's funny how the memory cheats.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
And TARDIS Monkey, "I adored everything. Captain Scarlet, Thunderbirds and Stingray. It was an absolute staple of my childhood and always look back on those shows with fond memories of TV time with the family." There we are again. And finally for now, Martin S. "The first model I ever built from scratch was a model of Thunderbird 1 when I was 8. I've been a professional model maker since 1984 and I'm still doing it to this day." Isn't that great? Inspiring people into new careers as well. So there we are. All for now, but I'm sure I'll come back to them because there were loads of hashtag Cheers Gerry Anderson tweets around Boxing Day.
There were. We were, I think, number 2 trending in the UK.
Brilliant.
Behind the phrase Boxing Day. So
fair enough.
that's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, great.
Rather lovely.
Good.
So off the back of that lovely note, should we hand over to someone equally lovely?
Oh, yes. Who's that?
Well, I tried to find them, but sadly I couldn't, so we'll have to make do with Chris Dale.
All right,
no, obviously I'm joking. Of course I meant Chris, the Randomiser Dale. Chris is here, ready to press or find someone to press the big red button on the randomizer to choose a random Gerry Anderson show and episode, and he's going to watch it and tell us what it is. Let's hope for something interesting, shall we?
Well, yes, let's hope so.
All right, so here we go. Over to you, Chris.
Hello everyone. Sorry, no time for a full introduction today, as the button has already been pressed by our very special guest. It's only Miss Tina Turner. Really? So Tina, which episode am I going to be watching today?
Reflections in the water.
Here's UFO. So, our first UFO episode on the Randomiser for 2023, and it opens with a shot that's rather similar to an episode we covered a while back, Subsmash, but this is not Subsmash, this is Reflections in the Water, which also opens with a ship crossing the ocean. This is the Kingston, passing an island, and here's a chap on board smoking his pipe. Yes, a very similar opening to Subsmash, although we didn't see any of the crew on the ship at the beginning of that episode. I don't think it's any great spoiler to say that, much like the ship at the beginning of Subsmash, this ship is also not long for this world. It's being followed by a UFO. A rather interesting shot of it in the water, kind of running alongside the ship.
Hey, Skipper, Ellie's here. You better come up and have a look. There's something alongside. Probably one of the latest kind of submarines.
Uh-huh. Yes, and who is the captain of the Kingston? Well, it's an old and rather early ITC hero, in fact.
Well, where is this monster of the deep?
It's Conrad Phillips, who played William Tell, one of the earliest ITC action shows, historical show, and he's barely appeared on the scene before his ship is being blown up. And in Subsmash we saw an underwater UFO that I never quite liked the look of. Here it's just the regular UFOs. Firing these smaller craft, which are firing lasers at the Kingston.
Oh, what's going on? What happened? Been hit? I don't know. Get some men on.
Conrad Phillips just seems a bit sort of put out by all this. No, this isn't done. Me being blown to bits, it's just not on. But I do like how very effective this episode sets up this feeling that the ship is surrounded on all sides by these what he's going to call flying fish. I think they're going to reuse some shots here from Subsmash of that freighter blowing up. Was it the freighter Atlantica in Subsmash? This is the Kingston.
Airborne missiles. Look like flying fish. Under attack.
This poor ship. Yeah, there we go. We've switched to stock footage from Subsmash now. I don't know why, since the Kingston model was pretty much all but destroyed by this point anyway. But if you notice, the name on the side of the hull keeps appearing and disappearing.
Kingston, come in.
And the shots from Subsmash, in particular of the ship being destroyed, are one of those that turned up in library archives and things to be reused in other shows all over the place. I think it turns up in things like Whoops Apocalypse and so forth. And speaking of things turning up, this piece of music was very popular with Barry Gray around this time. He used it extensively in the Psycho Bombs. And for those who don't know where this piece comes from, it's in one scene in Stingray, and then never heard again until UFO. I just imagine Barry Gray kind of found it in a drawer, listened to it and thought, oh gosh, that sounded really good. Why did I never use that again? Oh, I've got to use it again and again. And another interesting element of this episode, and there are quite a few interesting things with this, we have here over the post titles credits bit is, what I'm guessing is a this episode type sequence. It's showing off various bits of the action that we're going to see throughout the course of the episode. Unfortunately, it does largely give away the entire plot. One or two alternate takes here as well that don't look quite as good as what appeared in the episode. But this is a rather interesting one to talk about, because this is produced quite late in the run. This was one of the Pinewood episodes, and I have praised the Pinewood episodes quite a lot before. But this episode kind of falls into that category that The Man Who Came Back did, in that there's good stuff in here. There's a lot of good stuff in here. But there's also a lot of just
would be back in the 17th.
Oddness, stuff that doesn't quite fit, stuff that doesn't quite make sense. So we'll go into all that as we get to it.
Most of those boats are over 50 years old.
Really?
Meanwhile, Commander Straker is reviewing a film with is this Richard Caldecott playing a film director?
Work purely by instinct. No equipment, just years of experience handed down from generation to generation.
Again, more reused Barry Gray music. This is, I think, from the party scene in Captain Scarlet Model Spy.
Detector reported nothing in the area.
Ooh. And who's this?
Mayday, Mayday. Deep Space Probe 87.
Well, it's James Cosmo playing Lieutenant Anderson in Shadow Control.
Come in, 87.
25 UFOs missing. Concentrating in area NML12. We have been seen. 3 UFOs approaching. Taking evasive action.
No, you're not. And there they were gone.
SB-87, come in!
And that's an odd thing, again, with this episode. We have manned deep space probes.
87, come in!
Manned by shadow personnel, evidently. And one of them's found a whole nest of UFOs just sitting out there in space.
That fish.
Ah, the big old fish.
Strange. They're only found in the mid-Atlantic, never around our coasts.
Oh, intriguing.
I say, we've found something here. Did you notice that fish? I have a friend.
Commander Straker is so bored with the fish developments, he almost didn't register the call on his little intercom thingy.
Well, I was so intrigued with your picture that I nearly forgot I have an appointment to meet the backer of our next film, and I'm already very late.
I quite understand, Mr. Straker.
It's a very interesting film I've made about fish, isn't it? Yes, yes.
Get an underwater cameraman down there first thing tomorrow morning. I think we may have a very interesting new dimension to this film.
Big fish.
Deep Space Probe 87 has been destroyed.
And Lieutenant Anderson is meeting Straker on the studio lot. He's wearing a jacket, but he's clearly got his uniform on underneath.
I've alerted all stations.
Good.
It's not a very good job hiding his...
Scream will knock out at least half of them before they...
Shadow nature.
Earth's atmosphere. Doesn't make sense.
Maybe they expect to get them all through.
No, they know that's not possible. Unless they've got something else up their sleeve. Put Space Observation Platform Watchdog in that zone immediately. Computerize every scrap of information it sends in, no matter how small.
Another thing Shadow suddenly has in this episode, a Space Observation Platform named Watchdog. Which again is something I borrowed for one of my Terrorhawks episodes. This guy hanging around the place, Lieutenant Anderson, was scripted to be Lieutenant Ford, as I think is probably obvious, given the fact that he's basically, a Ford surrogate for this episode. And it's a shame that they finally wrote an episode for Ford to be in after Keith Alexander had left the show.
Do you see anything?
James Cosmo gives a totally fine performance, but again, it's just one of those, he's a one-off guest character we've never seen before, but he's vitally important to the setup of Shadow.
Water.
For 1 week only.
Anything else? Like a flying fish.
There's a couple of other bits like that as well.
Sharks in this area.
No sharks, says the other guy. Oh. An underwater cameraman.
Here, give us a hand.
He went down to look for the fish. And, well, something found him before he could find the fish. That's it, yes. Grab him by the bum and pull him in that way.
It's been cut.
His airline's been cut. This is serious.
And you say that he was photographing fish?
Yes. A species peculiar to the mid-Atlantic.
I like the way they sort of introduce this element to the story, but it's a very tenuous way to bring Straker in. The director of the film, whose underwater cameraman has died, is making the insurance claim on the studio lot now, and Straker's just kind of hanging around.
Air pipe was severed.
I suppose it's nice that he takes an interest in the goings-on the studio lot.
I'll call again to discuss the claim.
That was rather inconsistent. Either he cared, or he didn't give a monkeys.
You'll excuse me, I was going to see this with you.
Yes, of course. If there is anything at all that I can do, please let me know.
Thank you.
I care about the films that I make in my studio this week.
That cameraman said something about large silver flying fish. Now, last week, the freighter Kingston was sunk here in the mid-Atlantic by missiles like flying fish.
It was the last information William Tell passed on to us before he died.
You think there's a link? No, it's too much of a coincidence for there not to be.
And here's another character I don't think we've had appear on the Randomiser yet.
Proceed to the area where the freighter Kingston was sunk.
I'm having full instructions prepared for you.
I'll contact you in 30 minutes.
It's David Warbeck as the latest skydiver captain. Captain, insert name here. I don't believe he ever has a name.
UFOs maintaining position in area NML-12.
Sid gets quite a lot to do this week. And it's a shame. I think David Warbeck is a good actor. This episode and the other one he's in, I think he just did the two, Destruction. Neither of them give him like much material to work with, but he's totally fine in the role, and physically he fits the part quite well. What's this?
Seabed.
Skydiver has found an island. Oh, there was a boom mic. There was a boom mic there, picking up the captain's lines. If you look at the bottom left of the frame, just before he upped periscope. Yes, I've not seen that before. Or a microphone, I should say. And here's another odd bit. And there's as I said, this is an episode full of odd bits.
So still in the station.
One of the oddest parts of this episode is the way Colonel Lake is used.
What's the computer thing?
Well, we're so little information, it's reluctant to give an answer.
Not only is she shackled to the computer,
Looking for A, reinforcements,
passing on information that it decides to spit out at them.
operations and defences, namely shadow control.
Well, we know there are no signs of reinforcements, and the weather forecast for the next month is excellent, and Shadow certainly won't cease operations. I suggest the next batch of information you feed in, you add a drop of castor oil.
My God, I hate you this week. Yeah, Colonel Lake and everyone's interaction with her is so weird. And I gather this role was not written for Lake, it was written for an unnamed computer technician. In that sense, it does make a bit more sense that Straker and later Foster are kind of short with her at various points. But it's within the context of what we know about these characters. Everyone's really short with her, and she's equally abrupt with them. For this one week, it doesn't quite fit. Again, it's an example of,
yes, Captain?
As with the Lieutenant Ford, Lieutenant Anderson thing, the episode has been written a specific way.
I see.
The actors that we've got left, we can't really perform that script as written. So let's just kind of shoehorn in, in particular Lake into the computer technician's role and just kind of make it work. And it doesn't quite come off, purely because...
Yes, sir.
Everyone seems on the verge of strangling each other this week. There's an unpleasant undercurrent to a lot of scenes in this episode.
Thanks.
Everyone just seems really fed up.
Another link. Listen to this, Paul. The deeper I go, the warmer the water becomes.
Uh-huh.
Take a look at this, Paul.
More map looking at.
Around that volcano is a lot warmer than it should be.
Skydiver.
Captain, I want you, by using your temperature gauges, to follow that stream of warm water. Try and find out where it leads to, and if possible, what's causing it. Report back to me every 15 minutes.
Very good, sir.
I have an idea. They'll finish up just about here. Cornwall.
And the fish follow the warm water.
Lieutenant Anderson, what's the latest on Watchdog?
Lieutenant Anderson is on 24 hours leave, sir.
So that's Aisha there.
I said, received 3 minutes ago. No.
And also another interesting point in the script was, when it wasn't going to be Ford, they then changed it to Johnson, and then they remembered, oh wait, we already have a Lieutenant Johnson, that's Aisha, and we can't... I mean, equally, I suppose she could have handled the subplot that Anderson gets put through here. What's this skydiver have discovered? Oh, it's a cable.
Temperature rise of 3 degrees.
Captain!
And a couple more faces on
Evasive action.
Skydiver here. As we hear some reused music from Joe 90 as the UFO approaches Skydiver. This is interesting, actually. Skydivers, evasive action. What do? Well, they just kind of stop and hope that the UFO going past doesn't notice them. And luckily for them, it worked. I'm not sure. Is that standard evasive action? Just sort of give up and hope for the best? But yeah, a couple more familiar faces on Skydiver. One being Anuska Hempel, who we've seen before on the Randomiser in other roles in UFO. She's been in Shadow Control a couple of times, and I get the feeling around this time this is an actress that they kind of like, and she's reasonably good in the role, but they're just at this point trying to find where she can fit into this universe, and I think she does a good job here. Also, as the navigator of Skydiver this week, we have Barry Stokes, who was also in a previous episode. who would later go on to play Jim Haynes in Space 1999, Voyager's Return. And of course, Anushka Hempel was also in Space 1999, so it's nice that they find these people and then they stick with them. Meanwhile, a UFO has left a volcano.
Well, it seems a UFO has been using that volcano as a front door to the Atlantic.
Oh, naughty aliens.
We also found the reason for the rise in water temperature.
What was that?
An undersea cable. The UFO was using it as an energy supply.
Because they can travel underwater on their own power.
Yes.
Lazy sods, why do they need ours?
You think this one has been to Cornwall?
Well, it looks that way.
The aliens have been on a Devonshire holiday.
The volcano. And if the water temperature is so high, it's generating a lot more power than is needed to drive one UFO.
Ooh. And of course, I believe we know that aliens and UFOs can survive longer in the water than in the open air. So this is an interesting and tantalizing idea almost of a UFO force that slipped by unnoticed and is slowly but surely building a little network in the bottom of the sea. And what have we found here? Ooh. It's some kind of domey thing. Possibly a dome. I gotta say, the design of the thing has never looked all that interesting to me. I think Colonel Foster later says it's been a UFO, which is an intriguing idea, but there's no real evidence from the outside to back that up. Anywho, it's important enough to bring Straker and Foster out here.
Captain?
By Albatross.
Nothing, sir. I've been right round it, but it appears to be completely smooth. Any sign of it?
Much like my chest, sir.
Let's go down and have a closer look.
Dive.
Lieutenant? You know Colonel Foster? Well, I think a cup of skydiver coffee would be just great.
Of course, skydiver coffee, trademark.
Come on, Paul, let's get our water wings up.
I do also like when Straker says to Anushka Hempel, I believe you know Colonel Foster. There's a look between the two of them, as if Foster in particular seems to be thinking, oh yes, I know her. We've
dropped us.
We're familiar with each other. Yes.
Rendezvous back here in 45 minutes.
Yes, sir.
But then that's Paul Foster. I mean, anywho, see, going back to Subsmash, actually, this is interesting. I made this point in Subsmash. Why can't you get more than one person out of the ship via the escape hatch? They sent people out one at a time through that escape hatch. This episode, 2 people out of the escape hatch in one go. Why couldn't they have done that last time? It would have saved... Well, it would have saved poor old Chin from dying, probably. But here's an interesting new addition. We have sea skims, which are these sort of... they're similar to the sea bugs from Stingray. In fact, they are just basically the same thing. But it allows models of Straker and Foster to approach the model of the dome.
There it is.
Straker has to look behind him to make sure that Foster hasn't missed it. Oh, that was a bad... I don't like to say that there's bad shots in Anderson shows, but that was quite unconvincing, actually. Ed Bishop looking behind him, and he ended up looking at a model, which seemed to be sort of hung behind him. It was a very brief shot, but that didn't work. Anywho, they've now reached the dome. No defences, no security system. Let's give it a touch. Also, this is something that I find a bit unconvincing with this episode, and you can get away with it in the puppet shows. Model figures of actual characters in like swimming situations like this, but I don't think it quite works in the live action shows because they're just so suddenly so stiff. And although you can't see the wire, you can kind of sense that it's there. The fact that the characters aren't moving their feet, even though they're on these sea sled things, it's all a bit unconvincing. These model figures.
Could be some kind of porthole or window.
Well, there's nothing there, and we can't see through it.
Scraping away the outer layer.
Yeah, nothing on the surface of the set there to indicate anything that Foster just said is accurate. But hey ho. Let's try scraping it with a knife. And we can see inside. What do we see through the scratched window? Oh, well.
God, Paul. It's Anderson. It can't be.
Yep, there he is. Good old Gerry.
Yourself. It's Lieutenant Anderson.
And it's one of those things, much like dog logic, Straker and Foster can see Anderson, but Anderson can't see them. Whoa.
What are we going to do, blow it up? No. I want to find out what's going on in there.
Al, there's no entrance.
There must be, Paul. I'll get some of this stuff under a microscope. Maybe we can find out what that thing's made of.
What did you see, sir?
Afraid I can't talk about it at the moment, Captain. You'll find out why later.
Yes, sir.
I can't tell you now because I'm going to tell you later. I mean, it's not like he's, a senior member of Shadow or anything. Why does he need to know?
Dome, Captain. Report anything unusual.
This kind of feels like,
Resort blasted out of the water.
sort of poor plotting, having discovered
They get back to Shadow each.
this dome. They're then just inclined to leave it. And they say, we'll go back to Shadow and analyse the stuff on the knife. Maybe that will help us find a way in?
No, nothing, sir.
I don't think so.
Would you tell Colonel Lake I want Lieutenant Anderson's psychiatric analysis right away?
Yes, sir.
Should we put out a call to have him arrested immediately, since we suspect he's a traitor?
We saw with our own eyes, can we?
No, we'll get to that when we get to it. It's not important right now. Ah. I recognise that noise. That sounded a bit like the Randomiser. I wonder if that's where I pulled some of the sound effects from.
From Anderson.
At this point, I can't find... I couldn't remember. If you put a gun to my head, I couldn't remember where some of those sound effects come from. But that does sound very Randomiser-y.
Unsatisfactory answers. The most I can say about the last question.
Lake is getting snooty with her computer notes again. Everyone's a bit fed up.
12 is, if there is any link, it can only be connected with my previous answers. A, reinforcements, possibly the dome.
I also like the idea in this episode that Shadow's computer, occasionally they consult the computer,
A, radar.
but it never seems to have like an attitude or a personality.
Of Shadow to allow the UFO's uninterrupted entrance to Earth's atmosphere.
It seems to refer to itself in the first person this week.
Well, that's a massive useless information.
My God, I hate you too now.
I agree. Is there any way, Colonel, of rephrasing the questions?
We have asked the questions in 12 different ways, sir. Each time the same answer. There simply isn't enough information.
Yes, I'm sorry. Now look, Paul, we're not going to be able to find out anything until we get inside that dome.
Also, if you're looking for possibly a world record attempt, most uses of the word dome in a single television script, this episode is going to take it. But here's Anderson. He's shown up for work. He's smiling and happy, but you can't figure out why everyone's glaring at him. It does seem like arresting Anderson, or at least, tracking him down, should have been the first thing they did when they got home.
What were you doing in that dome? I don't know what you're talking about.
What were you doing in that dome?
What dome?
The dome we saw you in. We saw you in that dome.
Oh, beautiful dialogue.
I was at home.
Witnesses.
What were you doing in that dome? What dome? The dome we saw you in that dome. Dome.
About any
what were you
dome.
doing in that dome?
Oh, there's no sense wasting any more time, Paul. Doctor.
Damn dome, doctor.
I was never in any dome, whether you saw me or not.
D words. Yes, Jackson has been brought in to give Anderson a nice truth drug injection.
All about, but the answer better be pretty good.
The answer is dome, Lieutenant. Dome, and dome. I also like that they're doing this interrogation in Straker's office.
5 seconds.
They've turned down the lights, which actually makes it look quite effective. I don't remember them doing that too often.
Now, what were you doing in that underwater dome?
I don't know anything about an underwater dome.
Where have you been for the last 24 hours?
Dome?
I've been at home by myself.
Did you sleep?
Yes, I slept.
Did you lock the doors?
Yes, I locked all the doors.
Why?
There have been burglaries in the area.
Have you ever been to Cornwall?
Never.
He's got an answer to everything. Straker and Foster can't catch him out. He's never been to Cornwall.
Doctor.
He locks the windows and doors before bed.
Assistant.
No. This drug is infallible.
Vladek Shabel doesn't seem to want to be here either. He's kind of mentally checked out a bit, I think. It's a shame he only gets one scene.
One more?
No, not even one more scene, I'm afraid. Just the one. Yes, keep shooting poor old Anderson up with truth drugs.
Sorry.
That's a nice touch, though. I like that. It just makes the character seem a bit more real. He might accidentally, cause Anderson some pain there. It's strange as well in that this episode sequence, he clearly injects him and James Cosmo reacts with, agony! And in this episode, he is just kind of, in this take, rather, he plays it just kind of stoned.
I don't believe it.
There's only one way to find out what's inside that damn dome.
Damn dirty dome. Oh, damn.
Put Lieutenant Anderson under lock and key.
This is quite shocking, though, having interrogated him and now saying he's under arrest. They now drag the poor guy back through shadow control in full view of everybody.
The UFO
Although knowing Straker, it potentially, it's just his turn this week. It's always someone being drugged or interrogated or whatever.
Watchdog maintaining constant observation.
So our UFOs are still building up. Oh god, let's go back to the computer. Why not? I'm sounding down on this episode, I know, and I don't mean to, because there is some good stuff later on, and there's a lot of good ideas here. It's just...
That the entrance could be made by pressure. The rupture would be self-sealing.
How do you know? There's just a lot of leaps in logic.
Factory, sir.
And the character sniping.
Look, I do understand the problems, and the answers are satisfactory.
Thank you, sir.
You're no damn dirty dome, that's for sure.
Packed?
Ah, well, I guess that's the lake subplot, such as it was, resolved. And we're back on Skydiver. Hardly seems like 5 minutes since we left.
Sorry to have to keep you in the dark about all this, Captain. When I tell you why, I'm sure you'll understand. Lieutenant Anderson is a traitor. He was inside that dome.
Anderson? It's not possible.
I'm afraid it's the truth.
But he's got a name, sir, and everything. He can be a traitor if he has a name. Sir, I don't even have a name.
But I want you to stay within range. And if we're not back in 1 hour, destroy it.
But come on.
No buts, Captain. If we're not back in that time, we won't be coming back anyway. 1 hour, understand?
Yes, sir.
Oh, dear. Poor old Captain David Warbeck. You also do wonder in episodes like this, bearing in mind this is Skydiver 1, what happened to Carlin? What happened to Waterman? What happened to the regular crew? Where are they? Maybe they're just on leave. Oh no, there's that terrible shot again of Ed Bishop looking back and being confronted by a model of Foster. This time it was flopped over. Yeah, a lot of reused footage here. It does... Yeah, this is a lot of padding, really, around these underwater sequences. And it is simple reuse of footage a lot of the time. But anyway, they're back to the dome. Looking for that way in. And the way they kind of force their way in is, I would say, A, rather unlikely, and B, rather unconvincingly done. You just see silhouettes of them pressing their hands against it, then suddenly the water gives way. Cut to a shot of what I guess is Ed Bishop and Michael Billington standing on the set, and a curtain closes behind them. They're in.
It's been a UFO.
Again, fascinating idea. Visuals don't support it.
Own country, I think it's better to travel light.
But they're in. They're exploring the dome. The damn dirty dome. Again, Foster knowing that it's been a UFO. How does Foster know what a UFO looks like from the inside? Has there been some kind of off-screen adventure where they actually boarded a UFO?
It's down here.
Otherwise, all he's depending on, if we go by what we've seen on screen, all we can... all the information he knows about the inside of UFOs comes from his dream. But I would have liked to have seen a bit more of the whole it's been a UFO idea. Sort of half-abandoned consoles and kind of Frankensteined machines, bits ripped out of the wall. This just looks kind of... Well, it looks like... I hate to say it, but it looks like a very cheap 60s sci-fi movie, something like The Terranauts or similar, where it's just, we've got some walls and they're brightly coloured and we've got some corridors and that's it. It doesn't really fit with the whole UFO aesthetic. Oh, but there's Anderson again.
I handed him over to security less than 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
And by that I mean I watched you say to Jackson, take him away and give him to security.
Good idea. Look, we got 44 minutes. I'll meet you back in the equipment at 20.
Right.
So, we've got 44 minutes before Skydiver blows the dome to bits. You've got to have a look round first, The aliens have gone to all this trouble. It's only fair to investigate. So Straker is trying to sneak up on the alien Anderson here, but his shoes are making squeaking noises. It does rather limit how stealthy you can be when you're in squeaky wet gear. Also rather un-Strakery, un-UFO-ish, I should say, to see Straker and Foster just kind of charging around the place, each armed with a knife. I know that's how they got into the place, but...
See anything, Paul?
Oh, it's an alien, Paul. Yes, Straker should have known, because A, he's not in scuba gear. B, he seems to have more eyeliner on than usual. Yeah, it's actually, going back to the knives, they didn't use the knives to get their way into the base, did they? They just sort of pressed against it and it burst open. Now that he needs it, the knife is gone. And also something that we're coming to here is what exactly are these doppelgangers of shadow personnel, of Foster and Anderson and so on? Are these aliens who have been subjected to plastic surgery, or are they human beings who have been subjected to plastic surgery? I kind of assume it has to be aliens, and that maybe they can breathe the air in the underwater dome. Possibly not. It might have been nice if maybe there was some evidence that perhaps this was the crew of the Kingston who had been captured and subjected to this awful transformation. There's the real Foster.
Dr. Livingston, I presume.
We know that's the real Foster because he's a good guy.
Hugh, look.
Oh, I sure am a handsome devil, aren't I? And it is, it's nice sometimes to have things open-ended and not really explained, but I just think the way the aliens are presented in this episode, this whole thing of...
We'd call it some kind of...
the doppelgangers...
surgery.
But why?
It just doesn't...
That is the question.
...quite fit what's gone before. This feels like if it was done in one of the UFO comics, this would have been a really strong story.
This we better stick together, Paul.
But it just doesn't quite fit the show as it was. And I know they did experiment with the aliens and abilities and so forth through the Pinewood episodes, often quite successfully. I don't feel this whole plastic surgery creating duplicates thing really works. Which isn't to say that it couldn't work. I don't know. There's just something off about it. I think it also doesn't help that the actors are playing them like robots.
As good as any.
Foster has noticed that one of the corridors has a door at the end of it. It doesn't really stand out from the rest of the wall around it, but the script says that it's a door, so let's go through it. And inside, a replica of Shadow Control. I don't recognise this music.
Ever had that feeling you've been here before?
Maybe it's something familiar, but played really slowly.
But why?
Yeah, Shadow Control. Empty, but here come a load of familiar shadow faces to occupy it, including Anderson and Lake, Aisha, one or two familiar extras. It would have been so much fun if they brought out like Freeman or Ford. It's just coincidentally the aliens happen to have everybody who's in Shadow Control that particular week, including a replica of Straker himself. Yeah, the way the actors are playing this, it is more like hypnotised rather than, I don't know, rather than how I'd expect the aliens to act.
Shadow Control to Sid.
The Straker alien or whatever doesn't even get any lines. He just signals by holding up his hand as his underlings practice miming to pre-recorded dialogue.
Control to Sid. Come in, Sid.
Shadow Control to Moonbase. Come in, Moonbase.
Moonbase receiving you, Shadow Control.
UFOs approaching from NML-12. Do not attempt to intercept. Repeat, do not attempt to intercept.
Do not understand. Do not understand. You say do not intercept? Is this correct?
Correct. Commander Straker's orders. UFOs to be dealt with by Earth's defenses. Over and out.
So it is a clever idea in one sense that the aliens would amass a huge fleet for an attack and then realise that they had to have someone on Earth to work against Shadow or replace Shadow in order to let that fleet go through. But I just think seeing the aliens or whoever fiddling with tape recorders...
Skydiver.
It's a bit silly.
Straker's orders. UFOs will be dealt with by ground defences. Over and out.
And again, it's just that the fact that these aliens or whatevers are played so stiffly. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Do you find this fits within the world of the show? Because I find this episode is good. It's not great. I wouldn't say it's bad, but I would say it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, particularly in terms of just the regular world of the show.
Plan to take over Shadow Control and use it to let those UFOs through.
But where did they get our voices from?
Well, they've obviously been recording our communications. By using the words they need and putting them together, they can make us say anything they want.
And why all this?
It's the old Captain Foster trick.
Yet, like we've seen on the TV screens. Come on, Paul, let's go.
Also interesting that with this little rehearsal that they just had there, luckily, very luckily for them, and for Straker and Foster, that the alien Foster wasn't required to say anything there. They would have been in trouble otherwise.
The tubes.
Oh no.
Yes, sir.
Skydiver crew are going to open fire no matter what. They're going to blow up that dome.
We'll split up. That way one of us will stand a chance.
Okay. Whoever gets back first stops the countdown.
No, there isn't time. They're ready to make their move. Good luck, Paul.
Oh, good old Straker. That's a good plan, I think. Again, they're back to the knives. Where was Straker's knife when he was fighting fake Foster? I suppose they couldn't really show the hero of our show actively stabbing a man. That rather begs the question, why have him run around with a knife if you're not going to, use it? So luckily for Straker and Foster, all their gear is back where they left it. No passing alien removed it. The aliens don't even have CCTV in this dome thing.
Minutes. Only another 8 minutes.
More reused Stingray music there. We've had quite a bit of reused music this week. But this set, though, I mean, I'll ignore the fact that it's wobbling, but it does look like something out of Doctor Who of the same era. It's okay, but it's just not quite the regular heights that the show would normally operate at.
Captain!
I suppose, you do have to...
Thank God.
...have sets and corridors that look...
No, sir.
...all alike, so that Straker can get lost here near the end.
The massed UFOs are moving out of area NML-12. Must presume attack course.
And at last count, there was about 60 of them ready to come in. So this is a serious thing we'll have to deal with. Once Straker can find his way out of the dome... See, this is why he doesn't like these damn domes. Oh no, it's... a shadow guy. I don't recognise that actor. But Foster's made it back to Skydiver. 4 minutes left. Can Straker defeat mustachioed shadow alien man? Well, his stunt double's going to have a fair go. Yes, Straker's stunt double, also a familiar face in the latter part of the show. And I think on Blu-ray, I mean, stuntmen are really obvious on Blu-ray, but Straker's stunt double in particular, I think they kind of just sort of thought, oh, we'll throw a blonde wig on him and we'll get away with it. But it really doesn't work because the face isn't quite there. He looks to me more like Jeffrey from Rainbow.
Arm the torpedoes. Torpedoes armed, sir.
Nice to see the captain preparing to go through with it no matter what. Come on, stop fighting. Straker, just charge. Throw yourself through the wall of the dome. You got in easy enough. You might be able to get out easy enough. And presumably, if the aliens enter and leave the base in the same way, the whole dome would be flooded, well, whenever anyone came or went, wouldn't it?
Fire one.
I don't know. I don't get domes.
Fire one, sir.
And stock footage of
one away, sir.
A torpedo being fired. Does anyone know where that stock footage comes from, by the way? It's clearly real footage, it's not a model, but it kind of fits, sort of. Oh no, the dome is gone.
Colonel Foster.
Oh, happy times. Straker's okay. Oh, I love the way Anuska's sort of got her head on Foster's shoulders like, oh, it's a happy ending. Everyone's happy now.
Fire two. Yes, sir. Fire two.
Hey, blow more stuff up. We can do that now with a clear conscience. And there's a bit of a Looney Tunes moment here where the dome is destroyed and it ignites the fuel, the power line running to the volcano. It is very much, you expect, as the flame sort of makes its way along the cable, you expect to see like Wile E. Coyote or Elmer Fudd or someone trying to blow out the cable. But unfortunately, it doesn't work. And we get a fairly lovely island explosion. Yeah, that's good stuff. And now we've still got to deal with those UFOs. And this is again another shot where on HD it doesn't quite look as good as I used to think it does, because you can see how it's working.
For Earth at attack velocity in 2 waves.
This lovely shot of the moon, and then these little dots, each one representing a UFO, comes round from the far side, but you can just about see a wire or a support thingy underneath, making them move. But this is a serious moment in the history of Shadow, the history of the world rather. We have never seen such a large UFO fleet before. Normally it's just 1s or 3s. This is, I think, 2 waves of 25 each, or something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh. This is the wave that's approaching Earth, by the way. Oh yes, there's at least 10 there. 10 little lights.
Now. Shadow control to Moonbase. Attack and destroy second wave of UFO.
Aha, yes.
Alert! Red alert! Interceptors!
Straker waited before giving the order to intercept, thus letting the aliens think that their plan had worked.
Shadow control to Skydiver. Attack and destroy first wave of UFO. Understood.
But this is a fairly ridiculous sequence, as cool as it is to see all this UFO and Interceptor and Sky 1 stock footage flying about the place. What is essentially happening is you have several dozen UFOs being blown to bits by 1 wave of interceptors. Oh, and here are the ground vehicles as well. And another wave of several dozen UFOs being blown to bits by Sky 1. Just one Sky 1. Just that Skydiver captain on his own. Now, you know, I have utmost respect for Stephen Burkoff and David Warbeck's ability to protect the Earth. But I just think the fact that the aliens have amassed such a huge fleet, Shadow puts up a really minimal defense here, and somehow gets away without losing anything. It's like they're playing on a cheat mode. Every shot the aliens fire misses. Every shot Shadow fires is a direct hit. I don't buy this for a second. It's so... You know, there's such a massive invading force here, and Shadow are just breezing through it. Okay, they're about to lose that one ground vehicle, but that's reused footage from the Cat with 10 lives. So they've already lost that machine once. I don't count that machine. Again, it's nice, this footage from the Cat with 10 lives. But it's so, you know, the stuff that happens within it is so specific. We have seen all this before. And I know I'm not alone in that. I often say, I hope I'm not the only one, but I know I'm not the only one who feels that this end battle is so one-sided in favour of Shadow. I mean, Stephen Burkoff just fired his 2nd missile there. How does that even work? Anywho, that underwhelming battle...
I then knew what Shadow looked like. Or what we look like.
Is it? They've done it.
In some form of X-ray photography, but at least they won't try that again. Don't bet on it, Paul.
Yeah, for such a massive invading force. Oh, Anderson's back on duty. Forgiven. All is forgiven. Even though he didn't do anything. He's happy. Straker gave him a pat on the shoulder. Oh my goodness, that was Reflections in the Water. So much to talk about there. Again, I want to stress, I don't dislike this episode. I do think this is in the better half of the series, but it only just gets there. There is a lot working against this one. For all the good stuff, it just kind of feels a bit like we have a script. We don't really have a show that's composed well enough to make this script work, but let's do it anyway. Let's have everyone be a bit sort of snipey and sarcastic with each other for no reason. Let's have the aliens just be really weird, and even for them, very unlike the aliens that we know from the rest of the series. And let's have a massive, huge, perhaps the biggest battle we've ever seen in the series, and let's have Shadow win it with ease. I know some episode orders kind of put this at the end of the series, and in that sense it does work, but in the other hand, there's a lot of stuff here I don't like. So, damn domes.
Ooh, lovely bit of spooky UFO.
Nice, bit of UFO, lovely. Yeah, get the string vest out.
Yeah, I thought you were wearing it already. Yeah,
yeah, nice,
lovely. No, Reflections on the Water is a good one. So nice one there. Thank you very much, Chris. Chris will be back next week with another randomizer, obviously, because
goodness,
that's what happens here on the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Yeah.
Anything else from you, Dixter?
Yeah. Well, let's go back over to Twitter because these lovely messages that were tweeted on Boxing Day. Well, so many of them. I've just got a mere soup song here. For example, Kelly said, "I loved Stingray repeats growing up, and then I became obsessed with Space Precinct. So much so that the first thing I did when we got internet in the late 90s was to email the BBC asking if they'd ever show it again. Lol." Well, we know how that turned out. Sally Robinson tweeted #Cheers Gerry Anderson. "I was born in 1957. Your dad was the absolute foundation of my childhood entertainment." David Griffiths, "Thunderbirds was a massive part of my childhood. The adventure is so special. I still have the original VHS and remember my uncle getting me the Matchbox Thunderbird 3 and I was so happy." Yvonne said, "Oh goodness, I grew up with the shows and absolutely loved them. First one I remember was Fireball XL5, but my dad said I used to watch Supercar at my grandmother's house before we had TV. Stingray, Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, all favourites." Lee58 tweeted, "Big part of my childhood from Supercar, Fireball XL5, Stingray, Thunderbirds, UFO, great programmes, absolutely loved them. He and his team made their mark on millions of kids, something you must be very proud of, JB. #Cheers Gerry Anderson." Do you want a couple more? I mean,
go on, it's so lovely. Why not? Let's bathe in them.
Exactly. Martin Ross, "I loved how his shows provided such rich inspiration for composer Barry Gray too. So much amazing music that wouldn't have existed otherwise." Quite right too, Martin. Hereward the Wake, "It's nice to know that former monarchs of England are also getting in on the act. Said, your dad was a genius, touched the lives of millions of kids. You must be very proud of him. I loved Thunderbirds. It was wonderful." Bill Nance, "I watched and enjoyed Fireball XL5, Stingray in their first runs as a youngster, and Space 1999 as a teen. UFO wasn't shown locally, so I didn't see it till recently. Jerry and Sylvia were quite the innovators, rather." And finally, here's a little question too from Vinyl Lover, who tweeted, "Growing up, I loved Thunderbirds and would have loved a Thunderbird 2 that size. Oh, I've got a question to ask. Is this a myth that Thunderbird 3 is based on the Scott Monument in Edinburgh?"
I think
Pictures
it's a
of
myth.
which I've seen. Yeah.
I mean,
it's uncanny though.
Yeah, well, it is. But I don't know. I'm not convinced by that at all.
Yeah. But just search for it on Google Images. The Scott thing.
Scott Monument.
That's it, in Edinburgh, and you'll see exactly what he means. But there we are. That's it. I mean, there were so many more. If you're on Twitter, just go to the search bar and just search for #Cheers Gerry Anderson, and you will see, well, probably thousands upon thousands of entries for Boxing Day.
Entries, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I think the tweet that I did from my personal account was seen 1.5 million times, something like that.
Amazing, great.
Just a lovely response, heartwarming. Dad would have absolutely loved it, although he would have pretended to have been terribly embarrassed, and I don't understand it really. But no, isn't it great that 10 years on, all that love and affection, and so much more to come.
Yeah, exactly. Lovely.
Well, I think that's probably about it, isn't it?
I think that's probably about it.
Good, because I'm losing my voice. So,
I've noticed, yes.
Let's wrap this one up.
Okay.
We'd love to be in your clammy ears again next week, Podsterons, so please do let us join you there for Pod 240. And
hang on, you want them to join us in their clammy ears?
Well, I want them to allow us into their clammy ears.
Into their clammy ears, fine, yes, okay.
Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no, that's good, yeah, I understand.
I'm not sure. Anyway, email us podcast@gerryanderson.com. Please do us a revrating. The last revrating we had, I think, was in November. So
not good enough.
Well, all right, don't get cross. But yes, please do sort that out, Podsterons. We'd appreciate it. And we'll see you / say things to you next week.
Yeah, we'll do it then.
All right.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
I'm just going to look up that review from November.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought because it might.
Well, I hope it's a good one. You didn't mention whether it's a good one or not.
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure. I'm slightly worried. We've already read it out. Then, if it was November, I have to say our new podcast art looks rather lovely,
doesn't it? Yes.
In the
very clear, isn't it?
Yeah,
nice.
Whether I've read it before or not, I'm going to read it again.
Okay.
5 stars.
Oh, obviously.
From Captain Blu-ray. Get it?
Right, okay, yeah.
Or Captain Blu-ray, I don't know.
Yes.
The Vanishing Ray. Brilliant podcast. What a great podcast. Oh dear. What a great podcast. Jamie, Richard and Chris take me right back to my younger self. Playing catch-up with the podcast. I'm up to pod 116 at the moment.
Wow. Okay.
And listening to the new ones as they're released. Love the Fab Facts and the Randomiser. SIG. Well, thank you, Captain Blue.
Yeah, I agree with 90% of that.
Good, as you should. And in fact, another one, somebody refers to you as Officer Orin in Space Precinct. So clearly, the fact that you mention that so rarely is still sticking.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? Because I barely ever talk about it.
It's quite impressive. Anyway,
nice.
it's all rather lovely, and we do appreciate your kind words. They
always
enthuse us and enthuse others to listen. So please do that. And I guess you're off to do your last performance now, are you?
Yeah, oh gosh, yes. I've got 3 shows to go. Yeah, that's right. And then it'll all be over and done with. Yeah, for this year. In Baker Street. Yeah, but Sherlock Holmes may return.
Fine. Well, I look forward to that, hopefully. But in the meantime, you've got lots of work to be getting on with. So
I have, rather, yes.
Can you go and get on with it, please?
All right. I'm going to get on with it.
Good.
Bye.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.